All right, hello, welcome back to the Star Wars Mark of Balance podcast. I'm Mark. This is episode 3, where we're going to be talking about the light side of the Rise of Skywalker. So with the second part, I'm going to kind of piggyback off what I did with the dark side. I'm going to talk about some themes that I think Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker actually did very well and upheld that Star Wars legacy. And when I say themes, I really mean theme, singular, not plural. So this episode will probably be a lot shorter than the last one, because I don't want to just fill time for the sake of filling time and not be genuine with you guys. Because I think there's only one really great point that Rise of Skywalker makes that really adds to that Star Wars legacy. But other than that, I'll just talk about moments I really liked in the movie and some things that I paid off. But thematically, I think there was really only one strong point in this movie. And ironically, this theme comes from Poe's story arc, not Rey or Kylo's, who are supposed to be the two pillars of the sequel trilogy. It actually comes from a very small scene he has with Zori, where they talk about why the First Order is winning and why the First Order has such a strong control over the galaxy. And it's summed up in one line where Zori says, "There's more of us." And I think this is a really, really powerful line, because anyone who watches Star Wars knows that the trope of "there's always hope, never give up hope" is almost played out at this point. Not saying it's not a good theme, but the way that Star Wars always says it makes it almost a meme at this point. So it was really great to see this fresh take on the idea of hope and people banding together for one cause. You know, the line "more of us" really does have real world implications too, because I feel like today a lot of people think that there's more bad people than there's good people in the world. And I just don't believe that, and I think the film is also trying to say the same thing. There's a lot more normal, good, average people out there than there are bad people that are trying to do harm to others. And I think this message is really important in a world today where we're very divided and everything is very divisive. I think it's important to step back and realize that there are more of us. There's more good than bad in the world. And it's a very honest line. It doesn't come off as contrived or anything like that. And when I think about it in the grand scheme of Star Wars and all the media that we've gotten, I don't think hope has ever been looked at from this angle. Usually hope is used for a ragtag small group of people. But in this sense, it kind of flips it and says, we outnumber them, you just can't see it. They think they outnumber us, and that's how they win. The fact that Rise of Skywalker was able to reinvent a central theme in Star Wars that is said in almost every single piece of Star Wars media about hope and believing, I think that's pretty impressive, that they can do that with just one single line. And it does to continue to play out. I mean, obviously the whole Starfleet shows up with all the different civilian ships that came to help. But also when it comes down to Rey's final duel, it looks like it's just Rey versus Palpatine. But really, Ben Solo's there to help. And then all the past Jedi were there to help her win. And with Finn's storyline, you see all these other children that were taken away from their families to be turned into First Order troopers. And how there are so many of them out there. And even though this is a small group, you can infer that there are plenty of these cells across the whole galaxy, and that Finn isn't alone. So even though I think Rise of Skywalker does take away from other Star Wars themes that have been established, I think it reinforces and even pushes the theme of hope forward in Star Wars storytelling even more, which I think is truly valuable. Unfortunately, I couldn't really think of any other themes that the Rise of Skywalker did well. So from a thematic standpoint, I don't have much else to say about the Rise of Skywalker. So I'll simply talk about some other things that I think it did well. I think Kylo's redemption was the best part of the sequel trilogy, and this can mostly be attributed to Adam Driver's performance, because we really see the conflict in him throughout every single movie, and even in this last one. So when he's finally confronted by Han, and he feels the shift when Leia does pass away, you can finally see that cloudiness clear away, and he's almost like a kid again. A scared, but confident kid. And you see him as someone who was lost and is finally found. The scene with him on the Death Star throwing away his lightsaber was one of the best moments in Star Wars, I think. It brought together the themes of family, redemption, forgiveness, and growth. And I mean, come on, how great was it when Kylo shows up to save the day as Ben Solo, and he jumps and he hits that rock, and he just goes, ow. Or when he gets a lightsaber from Rey and he does a little shrug. I mean, Adam Driver gave so much personality to him within 5 minutes of him turning good. It's almost like you liked him for the entire 3 movies. Those little comedic beats were so great and so important to adding to Kylo's character at the end when he does become Ben Solo. I can't overlook that. Another thing I really liked that really kept with that Star Wars spirit was having the droids front and center again. I mean, all of Star Wars was kicked off by droids with C-3PO and R2. So it was really great to see that return to form and having C-3PO being such an integral part of the story and also being really entertaining. He wasn't just put into the movie to say, hey, look, we have droids. I also really liked Rey tapping into the dark side when her and Kylo were fighting over that ship in the sky. I think it was something new and fresh, and unfortunately it wasn't very much fleshed out, but that moment when she thought she'd killed Chewie because of her lust for power and revenge,
Your anger and your lust for power have already done that.
I think it would have been a really tragic message for her to learn in this movie, but like I mentioned in the Dark Side review, Chewie was alive again, and Rey didn't learn much from it. But I did for that moment think, wow, that's something new. We haven't seen someone struggling with it and actually use the dark side without even realizing it. And it kind of builds off what they did with The Last Jedi when she reached into that dark side cave on Ahch-To, and you saw her tap into that dark side and Luke getting very, very scared. And kind of continuing that arc into this movie would have been new ground for Star Wars that I think would have been really awesome. And though it didn't pan out that way, I really like that they included it in this movie. I mean, the visuals were also pretty cool, and Palpatine's outfit was pretty baller, pretty sweet. And even though they added another desert planet and another jungle planet, Exegol and the other snowy city planet was cool too. Oh my gosh, he doesn't know the name of the planet. Oh my gosh. I know. I don't know. I don't have much else to add to the light side of Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, but my main goal with this series, the light and dark series, is to take those both sides and find the balance. See, get it? Mark of balance? Yeah, we're coming full circle now. So while I think the two themes that I talked about in the first video, the dark side, are crippling to the Rise of Skywalker thematically, I do appreciate the light side of this movie and the theme that it does get across in a new, fresh way. And at the end of the day, if a Star Wars fan or a movie fan likes this movie because of the theme I talked about today, and it outweighs the two themes that I discussed in my dark side video, I totally get it. I think the theme of There's More of Us is much more approachable than some other Star Wars themes. And that's the balance. Whatever theme you identify with most, that's going to make or break the movie for you. For me, it broke it more than it made it, but I totally understand if you like this movie because of this message of hope, this new message of hope. And if there's any themes I didn't discuss today that you caught during your viewing of the movie, definitely interact with me on my social media accounts, Instagram, *_wars_Mark of Balance, or on Twitter, @Mark of Balance. I'd love to hear your ideas and your thoughts on it, and if you agree or disagree with my themes. I want to be the balance, the mark of balance. And that about wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I will continue this series with The Last Jedi, which I'm sure is going to be very, very juicy and very controversial, but I'm excited to get into it. Before that releases, I'll probably do a recap on Season 2 of Mandalorian and discuss my thoughts about each episode and then the season as a whole. And then I also want to discuss all the shows that have been announced and even the movie Rogue Squadron and my thoughts on those announcements. I know I'm a couple weeks late, but I didn't have a podcast at the time, so now I can finally do it and get my thoughts out there. So until next time, everyone stay healthy, and may the Force be with you.